I wouldn't wanted to be an RJ. So I did audition, So today
Yeah.
I am not an RJ, but I can say that
Okay.
I did try. That was my dream career. And I
Hmm.
did audition in Radio Mirchi and all that. Though if I would have really pushed that side out, probably I was taking your interview today. But
Yeah, maybe yes.
mm, I love photography. I do it as a passion. I have 700 photographs from my Bhutan trip. So creatively,
700 photographs on your Bhutan trip.
I mean,
My
it was a
God.
7 day trip, so 100 a day qualifies.
Baap
But
re.
yeah, yeah. But so you see, when you're clicking from a phone, that's the problem. I think I should go back to the camera days and that to the roll days, because when you're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
clicking from the photograph, you just clip in a burst shot. But when you are with the camera, you know what you're framing, and you just probably click one or two. So I
Correct.
think that's the let's blame the camera phone for that, not me. So that also happened, I think a few weeks or a month ago, right? Sometime back.
Hmm.
It's not that I'm in love with Himalayas per se. I mean, everybody loves Himalayas. Mountains is something which, especially if you're living in the north part of India, it keeps calling you.
Hmm.
But I think
Hmm.
more than the mountains, it's about the environment that I'm craving to be in, you know,
Hmm.
like living a life where we are too stressed and too, we are always in a run mode. We are always running for something or the other, so it becomes very difficult to settle down your mind, even internally in your house, right? Even if you build your own boundaries, you decide that this is what I want to do. You are accustomed to that, right? For example, before starting the call, we were just talking about spam calls, right? So you just can't
Hmm.
avoid them. But somehow when you go for a vacation, and especially if you go to mountains, where the pace of life is extremely slow, right?
Hmm.
They just adjust to that. And then high fortune, and that's how I, again, LinkedIn, quoting my LinkedIn, I posted that, and being a consumer of Hindustan Times from the childhood, and then being in their office, getting a chance to kind of have a conversation. So very interesting initiative that's been done by by HT, which is called Health
Hmm.
Shots. It's largely promoting a lot of, I would say, health related issues, and education around it in different areas, whether it's physical health, whether it's mental health, anything that is required. And the conversation was largely driven around, let's say, women leadership, right?
Hmm.
The role as a woman
Yeah, women
leader,
leadership.
what you play, yeah, women leadership, and some of the challenges that I would have faced, or
Hmm.
how I maneuvered through, or what have been my experience. So let's say whatever conversation we are having right now, just add a layer two of woman to it. Probably one of your questions would have been, then, is it more difficult to be a woman leader? So that's what, or a marketer. So I think that conversation was very much around similar topics, but yeah, it was strongly opinionated around women as a leadership, and maybe as it's very important at any leadership layer, not at the topmost as well, at any leadership
Hmm.
layer, to be very much synced up what what's happening underneath. You
Hmm.
need to understand that current which is running through. So,
Hmm.
and it only comes mostly in an informal setup. Formal setups are definitely required. You do need minutes of meetings. You do need to, run through those standard stuff. But I think
Hmm.
when you are in a very informal, open communication setups, people are more flexible and comfortable in really sharing the
Hmm.
business level problems or personal problems, or let's say creative problems, that they think
Hmm.
like digital marketer might be somebody who's like a carrying a magic wand or will do something magical. It doesn't happen that way unless marketing is aligned at a very business level, both externally and internally. You might be
Hmm.
doing 10 things, but the world is moving in another direction, right? So I think that's what I would really want to do as a marketer, and I would want every marketer to do. Many of our my good peers are doing that, and we have many brands to talk about like that. But I think
Hmm.
that's where I see a lot of gap. That still it's considered more of a very skill function. We are still
Hmm.
talking about post. We still talk about just campaign, but we don't
Hmm.
talk about the contribution to the business.
Yeah, guys, welcome you all to another edition of Tech Masters and Marketing Mavens. Right. So today we have a person with us who qualifies both as a CEO as well as a CMO. Right. So, and I'll explain that to you. And that is the reason why we were a little confused as to where should we host this video, amongst our CEO group or amongst the CMO group. Right. So, but we are going to host it in the CEO group, right? Because she rightly deserves to be there. She's the group CEO of Blue Vector, right? And she's had a stellar two-decade career before reaching over here. And she first started with Sopra Steria in '04, and as I mentioned, she is now the group CEO of Blue Vector. Her career is divided into 2 decades. So in the first decade, she was into services delivery, process, account management. Right, those are the roles that she executed in the first half of her career. In the second half of the career, she switched gears and she moved to a more creative side, right? So this is where she was handling creativity, solutioning, and marketing and branding per se, right? So that's what she was doing. She holds a PG diploma in finance from IMT Ghaziabad, and she holds an MBA degree from Hult International School, Business School in Management Consulting. Welcome, Nidhi. We are very happy to have you on the show.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure. Totally my pleasure.
Great. So, Nidhi, we did some research on you, right? And we were stalking you on your LinkedIn, right? And one of the things that we saw was that you've in one of your recent posts you've quoted Nelson Mandela, right? So
Mhm.
you've said, "May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears." Can you explain that?
Sure. So I think that's a very recent post that I did after my trip to Bhutan just the
Hmm.
last week, and I think the reason that I had put on that quotation with that particular post was that it was one of the biggest achievements in the recent years what I've done. So I don't know if many people might be aware that there is a very prominent and iconic tiger nest monastery in Bhutan, and I throughout whatever the lifespan that I had, there are definitely some personal physical challenges that I face at times, which is like
Hmm.
climbing on such a steep height. So but I really wanted to do it. So when I was sitting at a particular point where you can see the monastery, which is quite far, and most of my other friends and my guide and everybody had left, assumingly that I will not be going, and they decided that you stay here and we'll come back. And I just kept looking at it, and these were the only two things which are running in my head. My mind was telling me, just filling me up with all the fear that don't do it, you won't be able to do it, and you'll run out of breath, anxiety will hit you and stuff. But then my heart was just pushing me that you will never come back to Bhutan, probably you will never come back to Bhutan. So this is your chance, Nidhi. Just take a step, just try. And I think I just picked up my bag and I started it. So I think and I managed to do it. I did it extremely slow. And
Hmm.
now when I said like my member gang already went up, so I did it along with a lot of different folks. There were monks from Leh Ladakh who were doing it, there were kids, there were ladies with the backpack as a child on their back and stuff. So that all kept inspiring and giving me hope that when these guys can do it, I definitely can. So I think
Hmm.
that conquest just made me realize that sometimes we have to allow our heart and maybe strike a good balance between what your heart is telling you versus what your brain wants you to do, and then make an attempt. So I think that was the reason I put that quote across.
Great. So, some time ago, I told you that we were stalking you on LinkedIn, right? So, here's another
Yes.
evidence of the fact that we were stalking you.
I hope
You seem
positively.
to you seem to be
Yeah.
in love with the Himalayas, right? Because you mentioned I think there is a post about you being in Landor in Missouri,
Yes. Yes.
right?
I did. I
Tell us
did.
about that.
So that also happened, I think, a few weeks or a month ago, right? Sometime back.
Hmm.
It's not that I'm in love with Himalayas per se. I mean, everybody loves Himalayas. Mountains is something which, especially if you're living in the north part of India, it keeps calling you.
Hmm.
But I think
Hmm.
more than the mountains, it's about the environment that I'm craving to be in. You know,
Hmm.
like living a life where we are too stressed and too, we are always in a run mode. We are always running for something or the other, so it becomes very difficult to settle down your mind, even internally
Hmm.
in your house, right? Even if you build your own boundaries, you decide that this is what I want to do. You are accustomed to that, right? For example, before starting the call, we were just talking about spam calls, right? So you just can't
Hmm.
avoid them. But somehow when you go for a vacation, and especially if you go to mountains, where the pace of life is extremely slow, right?
Hmm.
They just adjust to that, and they're happy about it. So I think
Hmm.
that kind of environment is something which I then crave of, that I be surrounded with those kind of people. I'm in that environment where I automatically gets to slow down myself. So I
Hmm.
think that is something that it's craving me, because that is what exactly I'm trying to do in my current ecosystem as well. I'm consciously building that setup around me, setting up those boundaries, which I did mention in my Bhutan post as well, that just
Hmm.
to be at more at peace, and be a
Hmm.
little slower in life in terms of whatever is happening around me. So I think that is the reason what triggers me. And okay, next time I'll try to go to a beach now. Now that you pointed. But yeah.
So you said next time going to a beach. Does it mean you will be stepping out of your comfort zone, Nidhi? Because I think Himalayas seem to be your comfort zone.
Yeah, no, but like people go to Goa for peace, right? So
Yes.
it's about finding your spot. Even when we were in Bhutan, I mean, there could have been areas where we could have been like though it's a very small country with very less population, but I could have just stayed in the city, did a lot of that thing, right? But we managed to find out spots which were much more peaceful. We even went to a hike to live with a Bhutanese family for a while and stuff. So I think even if I
mm,
go to the beach, I'll probably be, somewhere very remotely, not finding the typical spots. So like as I said, it's about finding that zone, creating that,
mm,
and just being there. And especially because I'm a very people's person, so I like to be surrounded by the local people. I just that what kind of lifestyle they are living and how have they managed to crack through that peacefully
mm,
and happily,
mm,
vis-a-vis we are struggling to do that in our own cities.
mm, mm. So Nidhi, in the first 10 years of your career, as I was mentioning during the introduction, right, you've done a lot of work on the process side, on delivery side, right, on account
Yes,
management
yes.
side, and then you switched gears to marketing, right? That's what you did. Uh, Now, typically, what happens is that people they catch a, career line and they go deeper and deeper into it. They build their expertise, and on the basis of that, they ultimately culminate their careers. What you've done is that in the middle of the career, you switch gears, you moved sideways, and that sideways move has culminated into you becoming the CEO of the Blue Vector Group, right?
Hmm.
Now, this is sort of, you can say you either come out of your comfort zone and you've moved into another, right, or you've completely moved sideways, in your career. So what inspired you to come out of the comfort zone,
Yeah.
um, right, because you must have reached some sort of a comfort in doing what you were doing in the first 10 years of your career, right? What inspired you to move out of it and move into something new?
So I think that particular word itself made me move out. I don't like to be in my comfort zone ever. Because I
Mm,
think I'm a kind of a person who always loves to be challenged. Pushing myself to my limits. That's
mm,
that's just who I am. It's not something that I'm saying as part of trying to establish a particular image about myself. That's how I have been born and brought up, right? And that's who I am internally. So unless I'm pushing myself for something and I'm not achieving something for myself or the part, the thing that I'm part of, it
mm,
just doesn't satisfy me. So I think that that particular word itself, never that's never something which I fancy a lot.
mm,
Also, I think what we kind of sometimes confuse it out is that, like you said, that going down in deep down into a particular domain. But
mm,
after a while there are some domain skills which you have,
mm,
and then there is this layer of, let's say, transferable skills, right? Which is
mm,
something which will eventually become part of every individual. Like, even if you are in any kind of a role, you cannot avoid leadership after a while, right? You cannot
mm,
avoid team
mm,
management or managerial stuff. So I think I looked at my career from that lens a bit more, that because I was not very technically educated, from like I didn't have an engineering as a background and stuff like that.
mm,
I was
mm,
more into a very generic side of the world, processes and stuff. So I always
mm,
looked at, okay, I have the domain skills which I can easily equip myself and continue to learn. But what are those, stronger skill sets that I've built on top of them, which can help me grow in any career or any domain that I love? And I was
mm,
always a very creative person. Like I always had a huge creative bent of mine. So I wanted to eventually land up into marketing or sales, or even when I did my process work, I used to do. Even if I'm making a presentation, I'll be extremely creative in that. I'll not just do it for the sake of numbers, right, or a
mm,
graph. I'll try
mm,
to make it very expressive in nature. So I think
mm,
that confidence just made me shift, that I have this bunch of skills, and I just need to be more adaptable to this side of the knowledge of marketing and how the things are done, after 10 years of my career. And the switch came. And also I'm very adapt to learning stuff, so I don't consider thing that, okay, if I'll go there, I might have to spend a year extra to kind of make myself be more knowledgeable about that area. If I have to, it's okay, that's totally fine. I mean, I can be my batsman whole year, and then I can just decide to start bowling. What's the harm? It's my personal choice. so
correct.
so I think, yeah, that really helped me.
You're pushing yourself.
Yeah, pushing yourself and just doing what you want to. I mean, who's stopping us? I think most
Mm,
of the people just give it up to some notion in their head which is
mm,
not there. Either
mm,
we pick it up from the environment we are part of, from our families, friends, online information, but actually there is no notion. Nobody's stopping you. Just do
mm,
what you want to. And I always say this, that I always prefer risk more than rate. I am happy to take a risk and face the result of it, good or bad.
mm,
But I don't want to regret 10 years back and say that, oh, I wanted to do that. I wouldn't wanted to be an RJ. So I did audition, So today
Yeah.
I am not an RJ, but I can say that
Okay.
I did try. So yeah, I think
When
that's
when
been
was
my
this? When did
mantra.
you audition for RJ?
Very start of my career, like I always wanted to, that was my dream career. And I
Hmm.
did audition in Radio Mirchi and all, but to be honest, I didn't really pursue it very diligently because I already
Hmm.
started working. I was into
Hmm.
jobs, so I was just
Hmm.
trying it out. But at least I tried. So today even if I'm having a conversation, I can say that, oh yeah, I did audition. So
Hmm. Hmm.
I have
Hmm.
experienced that, though if I would have really pushed that side out, probably I was taking your interview today. But
Yeah, maybe yes.
maybe yes, right? So yeah, so I think nobody's stopping you. Just go ahead and do what you want to, and don't regret later.
Yeah. In fact, sometime back you made a very I think you made a very important point, which was that even during your first decade of the career, when you were
Hmm.
more on the delivery side, you would make your presentations which would be very creatively done, right? I mean, typically when you come into when you meet people who are into process and stuff like that, there are a lot of number crunching that they do, there are a lot of numbers that they put up, a lot of graphs that they put up. But people, some of them who are looking at the presentation, can get boggled down with the kind of numbers and graphs,
Yeah,
right? So it's
yeah.
something that I would love to learn from you at some stage, Nidhi, how to present graphs, how to present numbers, sorry, in a very, very creative
Sure,
way, right?
sure,
So coming to
sure.
Blue Vector, tell us
Hmm.
something about what Blue Vector does. It's a you mentioned Blue Vector Group, right? So what are the other group companies and what all do
Right.
you guys do?
So Blue Vector is my second home now. A very,
Okay.
very interesting venture. That made me kind of make a very big switch from working with brands to then going
Mm.
on the agency side, right? And I have a history back with them. I consulted them in somewhere in 2016, around that time, and I knew them since then, and they have done remarkable growth from that time till now. So basically, Blue Vector is a house of agencies, right, and companies per se. Let's say so as a
Mm.
marketer, we used to always struggle that, if I have, there are different sets of requirements, and, marketing has evolved a lot. It's no more about just one side of the function, right? That, okay, I'll have a social media account and that's all about marketing. So there are different avenues how to do marketing for your business, whether you are in a B2B or a B2C. So I think Blue Vector is one such organization. It actually helps you cater to that and deliver it in a very, very seamless manner. So we have different companies and agencies within Blue Vector as a group, and what we are trying to achieve is provide a end to end and a 360-degree solution to every brand, right? So
Mm.
starting from design, or let's say starting from strategy to design to video and film productions to technical solutions that you would need, from content marketing to advertising campaigns, everything under the earth that you can look for your business is something that we cater through different various companies within Blue Vector. So I'm kind of sitting at the top on of it in a way. When I say top, it's not to kind of put myself in a position. It's just that about I'm seeing it from a very holistic lens. That when I have a
Mm.
conversation in the market, I'm not having a conversation or a client. I'm not having it per se a specific one business set only. I'm trying to understand the challenge of the company or the business and what could be their actual requirement, and then just try to fit it into our the business units that we have.
So OnDot and Guru are two of your group companies, right?
Vululu is one, Dot Films is one, then we have Content Ninja, then we have a couple of partnered companies as well. So the idea
Okay.
is that, as we grow further, we completely become a group of all the companies either in-house or partnered, and through
Mm.
maybe mergers and acquisitions. But yeah, something which I would have always craved for as a marketer, that when I'm in a company as a brand, I don't want to talk to 10 different agencies, right? I don't want to talk
Mm.
to one for
Mm.
design, for creative solution, then one for
Mm.
film productions, or let's say for performance marketing. If I can get one person, or let's say one neck that I can hold, I'll be more than happy. And then it
Mm.
also helps in a way that when a group is involved, they strategically understand, and like I was saying, it's a very seamless communication.
Mm.
So if let's say from Vululu has done the design work, then it's passing on to Dot Films for something on a film production level. They understand what is the DNA that is running, right? We're not
Mm.
working in silo pieces, which becomes a little difficult when you're dealing with two or three different agencies. Otherwise, that communication
Mm.
breaks. So I think
Correct.
that was one of the very exciting parts for me to come, and
Mm.
I saw this as a challenge that I was facing. So I thought, oh great, if I can help my fellow marketers, then why not?
Great.
Uh,
So, Nidhi, tell me something. How are you guys different from others? I mean, you have your peer companies, right? how are you different from your peers? And I don't want you to reveal your competitive advantages. That's something which obviously you would hold on very strongly to. But if there are certain things that set you apart, that set Blue Vector apart,
Yeah.
what are those?
So firstly, what I just mentioned that, we are very different the way we are structured. So when somebody,
Mm,
speaks to us, they can look at an end-to-end solution from us. That's one. Secondly, I think in terms of, because of the nature of business that we have set in and the way the teams are structured, we work very strategically. So, and that's another thing as a marketer, I have always preferred to do that. Let's not
mm,
think at a task level, right? I don't want to talk about a social media post which will go on a Monday, right? I want to understand why that post will go. So,
mm,
we when we create anything for a client amongst any of our businesses, it's a very strategic engagement. We don't deliver, and we might choose our work, we might do less work than the market, but then whatever we do, we are very proud of it at the end of it. That okay, there was some kind of very strategic and a, like a soul level involvement in that. So that's the
mm,
second thing which really differentiates. And also thirdly, because why we are able to do it is because of the kind of people that we have, the way the team has been built up. I just joined them recently, but over the
mm,
years, everybody who's participating is a very deeply rooted creative, artist in their own. And that becomes my very opening and a very confident statement when I speak to, some of my peers or brand people, that, you're not talking to somebody who has learned graphic designing, let's say, as a skill, or just learned Adobe or a tool, right? They're
mm,
artists in
mm,
their own head, right? So they do it with a lot of artistic inclination, and they do it with a lot of passion. So
mm,
I think this is not typically everywhere that you will find. Mostly it's about learning a skill set, whether it's copywriting, whether it's digital or design, whatever it might be, and then just delivering that as a product. So we don't try
mm,
to do that,
mm.
if that helps.
Got it.
Yeah.
So, Nidhi, this interaction is going to be viewed by a lot of young marketers, right? People
Mm-hmm.
who are wanting to learn the ropes of marketing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, what I wanted to check with you um, is if you can share some of the marketing problems that you're solving for your customers, right? I mean, you may not name the customers, but if you
Mm-hmm.
can share with us some problems that you're solving for them, I think it'll be very inspirational for the people
Yeah.
who would look at this video and listen to the video.
Sure. I think what the way I've seen with whatever limited life that I've lived as a marketer is that there's still a gap between thinking at, again, saying that thinking at a very task level, then
Mm,
considering marketing as a very contributing function for the whole, let's say, for the whole year, right? Like for sales, we set up a whole vision and a goal and a number that we then try to achieve. For marketing,
mm,
also, if we very holistically look at it, that how this function will help me overall in the whole year, what is it that it strategically it can do. So I would want that every CMO should be sitting at that conversation at the start of the year, right? And being part of that entire business movement that you're, or that shift that you're going to do in that year, whether it's a new product launch, whether it's about, let's say, even achieving a number, then how do we do it, what communication we put out in the market and all, rather than thinking that okay, this is my medium and this is something that I'll do this week or this month, and what is the ROI back out of that. So not thinking
mm,
in pockets, and we're thinking very, very large scale, and then giving that due attention and importance and resources to the function. So I think even when I interact with a lot of college students, or interact with the younger generation, what I see is that the queries that they have, or maybe the kind of
mm,
thought process they have, is very educationally pocketed, in terms of the skills, that they think
mm,
like digital marketer might be somebody who's like a carrying a magic wand or will do something magical. It doesn't happen that way unless marketing is aligned at a very business level, both externally and internally. You might be
mm,
doing 10 things, but the world is moving in another direction, right? So I think that's what I would really want to do as a marketer, and I would want every marketer to do. Many of my good peers are doing that, and we have many brands to talk about like that. But I think
mm,
that's where I see a lot of gap. That still it's considered more of a very skill function. We are still
mm,
talking about post. We still talk about just campaign, but we don't
mm,
talk about the contribution to the business.
Return on investment, as you said.
Yeah, like yeah, and that
Well,
could be
that's the big
strategic as
question.
well, right?
That's a big question, isn't it? The business heads keep on pushing the marketers for the return for all the investments that the business is making into marketing,
Yes,
right?
yes, but it's a long-term function. I mean, there might be some ROIs which can come to you overnight. Let's say if you're just chasing, let's say, followers or maybe
Mm,
impressions, but there are some ROIs which will be long-lasting, which only marketing
mm,
can bring, right? It's not a sales-driven function. it's a sales enablement function. I always
Hmm.
say that, we enable sales. If
Hmm.
you're trying to drive your marketing only to do sales, then you're missing a very powerful part of it, which is, brand establishment, that loyalty, that authority in the market. So I think it should not be considered as the driver to sales. It's an enabler as much as
Hmm.
we can.
Hmm.
So that due, I think, consideration as a function should be given to that.
Hmm.
And I think that's what the new generation who's coming in should really think of. That, for example, they're going to any particular brand, they should really be well versed with that, what this brand would really want to stand for. What is it that the marketing is looking and expecting from a brand like that, or that product or
Hmm.
service, and what is it that I can contribute as a marketer, rather than just
Hmm.
pocketing themselves in a, that I'm a digital marketer, I will do this, I'll do an SEO, or I will just create this post. Just try to
Hmm.
think beyond your specific skill, and just
Correct.
think as a whole, as a function.
Correct. Correct.
Because you will eventually saturate in that. I mean, how long will you, even if you're a designer, you will at one day become a creative director. And at that
Hmm.
time, you will have to think beyond something, limited to that particular part of the day-to-day role.
True. Absolutely true. Uh, Nidhi, we saw a poll that you had carried out recently on LinkedIn, right? And that's
Mhm.
a third time I'm quoting your LinkedIn. So now you know for sure that we were stalking
For
you, right?
sure, for sure.
Okay, so you had sought responses on whether the current focus of marketing is on let me read this out, on AI,
Mhm.
Web 3.0, and Gen Z. And you had
Mhm.
further asked what are the primary challenges that marketers are facing in their daily work. Now, of the
Mhm.
options available, 29% responders went with leveraging emerging technology, and
Mhm.
71% went with managing business expectations. Uh,
Mhm.
Give us your reflection on this.
So I think it just validates to what we were talking, because what is happening, that you will see most of the conversations, and we know even when I participate in some of, let's say, seminars and stuff, those are the buzzwords, right? Those are the conversations
Hmm.
which are happening outside. But
Hmm.
internally, every marketer is actually struggling with that problem, managing the business expectations, because there is this disconnect, or there is this plugin that is required. That what a business really expects out of that function, right? And then what are we actually doing on a day-to-day level, which might be beyond AI and Gen Z and all that, right? We are still, like, in most of my roles, I've not yet applied AI at all. My major,
Hmm.
problem on the table today would be that, how do I, sync up with what management is trying to achieve for this year as a business objective. How do I, do that, and deliver on that on a day-to-day basis. So I think it just validates to what I just said completely, in terms of
Hmm.
consider this function, and setting that right expectation. So when I say managing, it's for the first starting step is setting the right expectations.
Hmm. Correct. Correct. Also, sometime back you mentioned moving from brand to agency, right? And
Mm.
again, you work with massive brands, Tata Advanced Systems and Geo Savan of the Reliance Group. So,
Mhm.
how do you see the shift from brand to an agency?
Yeah. So, when you're working with a brand, people think that you're the king or the queen. But that's not really always the case. I think more of it, the lifestyle is very much similar. At the end of the day, you're trying to solve a marketing problem, whether you're
Hmm.
dealing it from a brand side or even from an agency side. I think it
Hmm.
just shifts in terms of the kind of ecosystem you're part of, right? So, as a brand, you might be in a position to have a little bit more liberties to do what you want
Hmm.
to for your brand, but at the same
Hmm.
time you might be restricted as well, right? And again, similarly, in terms of resources, you might, people usually perceive that, if you're working with a very big brand, you have a plethora of resources available to you, whether it's in terms of skills or budgets and stuff like that. But that might not be the case always. So even internally as a brand, sometimes you have to set up your function in a way that you have to deal with what you have and still achieve the results, right? But the only larger difference which I see is that you are very focused on one area, that this is
Hmm.
all, like you mentioned, Tata Advanced Systems. So cybersecurity was my only life, right? That was my whole
Hmm.
industry. All I have
Hmm.
to study, interact, meet, or deliver, do whatever, was cycled around that. But when you're working in an agency, you have to kind of broaden that. Maybe today I'm talking to a cybersecurity company, tomorrow I might be talking to somebody in FMCG. So I think, at the base level, the problems and the way you operate remains very similar. You might have to
Hmm.
again compromise with the resources and managing those expectations, but
Hmm.
your horizon has to be very, very wide. You can't limit yourself to one business side, which is the
Hmm.
flip side. It's more challenging as well, but I think that's what is fun, right? So that's more fun. But as a marketer, totally, I would say it's there's no mm, right or wrong way to say that you should be with a brand or with an agency.
Mm.
It's purely what you
Mm.
enjoy. I've thoroughly
Correct.
enjoyed when I've done work with the brands, even in operations or services. So it's purely about that, whatever you're doing in your current role, whether in agency or a brand, it just excites you as much, and you are able to, do justice to your capabilities. But equally, they both will give you opportunities.
Yes. I think it's about, as you said, it's about executing a role which allows you to fully leverage on your abilities and lets you fully creative, the way you want to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like in a brand, you might be really closely working with sales, which an agency might not give you an opportunity to, right? But then it all
Mm.
depends. Somebody might look that as an opportunity, and somebody might look that as a challenge. That, oh, I have to now work accordingly or as per the sales function as well. But I always
Mm.
saw it as an opportunity because I had the first-hand voice of the market through my sales team as to what's really happening on the ground, right? So I think it's a very personal choice. But
Mm.
both the sides of the world are very exciting.
Correct. So let's take you back to the days when you were a student of marketing, Nidhi.
Uh-huh.
In those days, I'm sure you must have received a lot of inputs, a lot of insights and education from professors and from industry
Mhm.
specialists, right?
Mhm.
Now that you are at a certain level in the industry yourself, you're an industry leader now, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
How have you been contributing towards the education of marketing? So, in the sense, do you interact with students in colleges and universities? That's part A. And part B, uh, given that you're the CEO, do you interact with the first level creative persons in your organization? Do you get that chance?
So to answer your part A, tremendously. I think every
Okay.
month I'm doing something with the students because I just love to do that. Like I said at the start, I'm a very people's person. So I
Mm.
don't miss out any given opportunity to interact with anybody. Whether it's a startup, team which is looking to interact. Maybe as just me as a person. Not going beyond, not looking at my designation or anything. It's just as an individual, they find that I can contribute and add value to a conversation, and
Mm.
especially with students. So I think all across India, I've been part of very, very prominent colleges discussions and panels and stuff. And I
Mm.
would be very, very at the forefront to do that because I think those, what I see them as is not somebody who's studying right now. I see them as my potential, maybe my peer or my employee tomorrow, right? So if I can
Mm.
contribute and help in bridging any specific gap right now, which I
Mm.
do, it will only help me in the future, right? The world is very
Mm.
small. We are all a part of a small marketing community further to it. So you never know. You're just interacting with somebody today at a college level, and that tomorrow you're interviewing that person.
No,
So why not help?
exactly. It also helps you identify talent right when they're very young, right? I mean, catch them young and,
Yeah.
and watch them grow.
Yeah. So there have been individuals that I have been in touch with. I have probably, worked with them as an, let's say, an intern capacity, or I would have recommended them to a project and all. But yeah, always. So totally up for it, always, and love it. And to
Mm.
answer your part B, obviously, like I said, I'm a creative bent of mine. So even if I'm at a, I will call it, unfortunately, I'm at the business layer where I have to think numbers and sales and all. But
Mm.
internally, I would always love to be part of even a logo making process, right? So I thoroughly enjoy all the creative process whenever given a chance. I would
Mm.
always love to be, and I always do that as well. Because even individually in my own space, like I love photography. I do it as a passion. I have 700 photographs from my Bhutan trip. So creatively,
700 photographs on your Bhutan trip.
I mean,
My
it was a
God.
7 day trip, so 100 a day qualifies. But
Baapre.
yeah, yeah. But so you see, when you're clicking from a phone, that's the problem. I think I should go back to the camera days and that to the roll days because when you're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
clicking from the photograph, you just clip in a burst shot. But when you are with the camera, you know what you're framing and you just probably click one or two. So I
Correct.
think that's the let's blame the camera phone for that, not me.
Yeah, you don't have to carry both for that.
Absolutely. So I think that's so creatively I keep doing that as well. So anyway, I mean, I don't miss out any chance to be creatively involved anyway.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm. Actually, that question came from a piece which I had read about Satya Nadella.
Hmm.
And in that piece, it was mentioned that what Satya frequently does is that he meets with the young people working in Microsoft, right? And he
Mm.
meets with the youngsters and he has informal chats with them. These are not town halls or something like that. So typically
Hmm.
he would just walk around, catch up with youngsters, have a discussion with them, get to know what is happening in the market, right? And that also gives him a lot of ideas on
Yeah.
what to pitch to the customers and which way is the trend flowing, right? That's how
Yeah.
CEOs catch their trends. So that's the reason. That's also one of the reasons why I thought I'll check with you whether you get the time to interact with youngsters in your company or not?
Yeah, no,
So,
absolutely. In fact, I used to do that from very start. Like when I was leading the
mm,
services industry as well, I had a decent team of around 15 to 20 members. Sometimes we used to go for a meeting, like a walk meeting. We just walk
mm,
down the campus
mm,
and we're just talking one on one and doing that. It's very important at any leadership layer, not at the topmost as well. At any leadership
mm,
layer, to be very much synced up what what's happening underneath. You
mm,
need to understand that current which is running through. So,
mm,
and it only comes mostly in an informal setup. Formal setups are definitely required. You do need minutes of meetings. You do need to run through those standard stuff. But I think
mm,
when you are in a very informal open communication setups, people are more flexible and comfortable in really sharing the
mm.
business level problems or personal problems, or let's say creative problems. So yeah, I've always done that as an individual, and even till date, and forever. I would love to do that, and one
Mm.
should do that. Yeah.
Yeah, one should do that. Correct.
Yeah.
Uh, Nidhi, there was a conversation on women's leadership on health shots, right? And you were
Yes,
you were
yes,
engaged with it. Tell us about it.
yes. My fortune, and that's how I again LinkedIn, quoting my LinkedIn, I posted that, and being a consumer of Hindustan Times from the childhood, and then being in their office, getting a chance to kind of have a conversation. So very interesting initiative that's been done by health, by HT, which is called Health
Mm,
Shots. It's largely promoting a lot of, I would say, health related issues and education around it in different areas, whether it's physical health, whether it's mental health, anything that is required. And the conversation was largely driven around, let's say, women leadership, right? The
mm.
role as a woman
Yeah, women
leader,
leadership.
what you play, yeah, women leadership, and some of the challenges that I would have faced, or
Mm,
how I maneuvered through, or what have been my experience. So let's say whatever conversation we are having right now, just add a layer two of women to it. Probably one of your questions would have been, then, is it more difficult to be a woman leader? So that's what, or a marketer. So I think that conversation was very much around similar topics, but yeah, it was strongly opinionated around women as a leadership, and maybe as an individual as well, because
in fact, I was going to ask you that.
yeah.
How difficult
Say.
it is being a leader and a woman.
I think I realized that after some time back, when there has been some drastic changes at my personal level, at the family front, that I realized that we used to just say this, and we used to just maybe hear about it, that it's little more difficult for women to manage house, and then at workplace and otherwise and stuff. But I face that as a first hand thing right now,
Mm,
and I do see that there is a difference, right? I mean, no matter, and I'm not trying to be feminist, and I'm not that kind of a person. I consider everybody in a very similar zone. But I think as a woman, your challenges are a little more steep,
yes.
because the expectations are, though the world is changing at a very very rapid space, but still I think there is this kind of, which I mentioned in that health shots interview as well. It's not about what you're doing right now. It's all about the upbringing that you had, right? So a
Mm,
lot of things
mm.
are preconceived in our mind, which
Family
will take
support, upbringing.
exactly, and it will take
Mm,
generations to go. These are not
yeah.
the things which can just go in a decade or two. There will be
Mm,
drastic generational shifts which will happen, and then
mm,
these things will completely maybe evaporate, or reduce to a very minimal level. But for the
mm,
past 30, 40 years, let's say, or 20, 30 years, we have been talking about these things, but there has
mm,
not been a drastic shift. So I think that's
mm,
what I started to realize more, that that there is that. But then,
mm,
I think challenges are everywhere. Like we talk about, there could be somebody with physical disability, right? That person
mm,
is also
mm,
going through a challenge. So challenges could be in any capacity. We should not try to just focus on that. Like I started to think of it when I've been asked more about it. Before being
mm,
asked
mm,
about it, I never really paid attention to it. That am I having a
mm,
difficulty as a woman in my office? Am I not being given
mm,
an opportunity and all? I always focused about what I can do. But now when I have
mm,
been asked, I've been literally made to think about it. Then I went back and like, yeah, I think there is a bit of a challenge. So yeah,
mm.
it's just about the way you look at things.
Yeah, actually, you're right. 2 generations ago, it was taken for granted that women are the caregiver. They were the first responders in the family, right? They were the
Yes,
caregivers,
yes.
mothers, grandmothers. They would take care of the home, and
Mm,
man is the primary breadwinner, right?
yeah,
I think one generation ago, this kind of changed. Changed
changed.
as in not on its head. I mean, you can't really change something on the head by just one generation.
Yeah,
But I think somewhere it started coming out that look, women can also step out, they can deliver, and they can deliver equally, if not less, than men, right? At least they can deliver equally. And in this generation, in our generation, things are really changing, right? Let's hope to see more women break the
Exactly.
glass ceiling,
Yeah,
not
yeah,
just
yeah.
as CEOs but
Absolutely.
also on the board, right? That's what we would love to see. Um,
Absolutely.
given the fact that we've reached here in our conversation, I thought it's good to step out of the office work and get into something personal, right? So let me check with
Hmm.
you this. A common trait that we've observed with a lot of CEOs and CMOs, right, who real achievers, is that they have something which they do, something of a sort of a hobby, right, which they immerse themselves in. So they want to be
Hmm.
creative on jobs, right, and they supplement and complement that by being creative elsewhere as well, right? So what is it that you do, and how do you put the devices away, cell phone, laptop, ye wo, how do you do that?
Very easy. Just put them away. That's it's as
Okay.
simple. Like I put that away right now while we are talking.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's not just as a CEO. I think everybody needs it right now. With the
Hmm.
level of immersion we are having, forget about our
Hmm.
generation. Like my dad is whole day immersed with it. So I think everybody needs to cut off through it. As a hobby, or like as an immersion, what I really enjoyed it. I'm a very avid reader and a writer as well. So
Hmm.
my not all my posts come on LinkedIn, but I do a lot of self writing as well. So I consume, I have to still go back and read traditional books. I'm not even a Kindle person, so I will pick up a book, a hard copy, and I read that, right? And then I do my bit of writing. So I think that's a very expressive space, because when I just picked up *Sapiens*, which is a very known book, and probably hundreds of people have read it. But I'm just very immersed into that conversation. When I'm reading a
Hmm.
book, it's not about finishing a book is my objective, right? I can do that
Hmm.
anytime, because I'm not trying to prove anybody. I'm very immersed in that topic. So when I pick up something to read, I take it as a like an exercise for myself to be in that domain for a while. Like I'll read about Yuval Noah Harari, who has written the book, for a while. I'll probably YouTube him as well. I'll deep down and understand what he broke down in that book and stuff, so that I educate
Hmm.
myself for that topic.
Hmm.
So that really, what happens is it puts me into the next level of immersion. It's not just about
Hmm.
book reading. It actually immerses me into that domain. Like before this, I was reading a book called Dopamine. So I read through much more than that book, about the author, about the concept of
Hmm.
it. So it just educates me and it keeps me in that area for a while.
Hmm.
It's like going for a vacation, that up pehle vacation se pehle you're planning, you're busy, then you're on a vacation, and then post vacation. So I make
Hmm.
myself go into the reading vacation, right? And then I obviously end up writing as well. So that's what I do. And I have set very strict rules about my distraction. Like after 8 o'clock, or normally 8 o'clock, so 8 to 8, or let's say 9 to 9 is my complete off mobile time. Nothing in
Hmm.
the world can shake me. Like unless there is a crisis, somebody will call me. But I just do not touch it unless I'm listening
Hmm.
to a podcast, which is my time, and I'll just play it
Hmm.
and keep it. But I don't consume. So imagine like a 12 hours is a complete cut down time for me on the phone,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
consciously do it. And if even if my best friend is calling me, or anybody is calling me, unless it's a really situation that I know that the person needs to talk to me, I don't pick up. I'm that bad. I won't pick up the call, and I'll tell them next day that I slept over or something, which is usually the case. But yeah, so I think you have to be very, very strict about some of the ground rules for yourself, and
Hmm.
people adapt to it.
And that
So
helps you. That actually helps you recharge your batteries. No, I mean you have to recharge your
yes,
batteries.
yeah,
In
yeah.
fact,
Otherwise,
some time ago you mentioned that you were reading a particular book, and that made you research on that topic even more. I was listening to Amish, one of his interviews, and he
right, right.
mentioned, and the question I think he was put up was that how do you know so much about so many things, right? So he said
Hmm.
you read, and when you read, there are so many questions that pop in your mind, and when you start researching on those questions, you start gaining knowledge, and that's how you expand your knowledge. And that is
Absolutely,
precisely what you
absolutely.
mentioned, no? That you read a book, you like a topic, you start doing a surround read about it, right? You YouTube a topic, you YouTube an author, you do a lot of stuff. Um,
Absolutely. Or I'll talk to people about it, and I'll then hear their 10 different perspectives and all. So it's
hmm,
like that subject that you're immersed in, because big book reading and book finishing is very easy. You can
hmm,
just do it if you're doing it
hmm.
as an English read. But that's not the idea. You're just
Yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
correct.
grasp. People have given years. You have written a book yourself. It would have taken you a year or a 2 year to write that book. And if I'm
Yeah, yeah.
not doing justice of even reading it properly or giving attention to it in that space, then there's no point. So I think we do that. We'll enjoy it thoroughly. I mean, I should recommend that please do that. Pick up a book and just surround yourself with that topic for a while. You will just learn 10 times more than that book.
And the feel of holding a book is better than the feel of holding a device in your hand. No, I
Any
mean you can smell
day,
the page, you can smell the
any
paper.
day,
That's
any
a
day.
wonderful thing. It's like freshly baked croissant. No, even you're holding a
Absolutely.
book.
Yeah, I wish we had libraries, so it'll be again like having a croissant in a cafe, coffee. So
Correct.
unfortunately, we are
Correct.
missing out on libraries, but yeah, at least we have books for a while. So let's hook on to them. Yeah.
That brings us to the close of the of this interaction, Nidhi. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to find very inspiring ideas from this interaction that we've had. And we'll catch you once again, and we are going to do a lot more stalking on your LinkedIn before we catch you the next time.
Sure, absolutely. But do stalk me when I post about this interview.
Sure, definitely.
Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Bye.